evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Iran strikes back, launching missiles at a major U.S. military base. Tonight, our troops are safe, and President Trump is responding. Plus, why did Iran target this base in Qatar, one that President Trump actually just visited last month? A former brigadier general joins us live to explain. Also this evening, market moves. Despite all the tension, despite what you saw on the screen today, stocks up, oil prices down. Why Wall Street is actually shrugging all of this off. So, at the end of the day, is this what peace through strength actually looks like? We're going to get into all of that coming up here on The Hill over the next hour. We thank you for being with us tonight. About 40 hours after the United States leveled the surprise attack via B-2 bombers on 3 Iranian nuclear sites, Iran responded. The commander-in-chief saying tonight that 14 missiles were fired toward an American military base in Doha, Qatar. None landed. President Trump saying of Iran, quote, "They've gotten it all out of their system." The president adding, quote, "I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice." The president's former chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, and his former press secretary, Sean Spicer, join me in a moment. But first, to our Brian Enton, who was on that last flight into Doha today and witnessed those missiles being shot down. Brian?
Yeah, Blake, we saw the missiles. They were right up above my shoulder behind me, right over the Doha skyline. There were 19 of them that were shot from Iran towards this massive U.S. military base here right outside Doha, the biggest U.S. military base in the Middle East, about 10,000 soldiers. So this could have been so much worse. Luckily, the U.S. anti-missile systems, along with the Qatari anti-missile systems, stopped almost all of the missiles. There was one that got through, but didn't cause any severe damage to the base. Meanwhile, here in Doha, Blake, the airspace just opened back up. I can actually hear planes for the first time. You mentioned the president says that they were alerted ahead of time that these strikes would happen. Qatar was alerted. They shut the airspace down. We got in just in the nick of time before they shut the airport down. Now they've opened the airspace back up, which is kind of interesting when you just think about the plans behind all of this, sort of the performative nature of this strike, the fact that they warned America ahead of time, and now they're obviously getting the indication that they can open the airspace back up. Blake?
Our Brian Enton on the ground there in the Middle East. Brian, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Back here at home, President Trump responding after his meeting with the national security team today. And all of this comes, just think about it here, as the president is about to head abroad to gather with world leaders. Our Joe Khalil is at the White House today. Joe?
Yeah, Blake, really significant. I'm glad you pointed out that it was President Trump himself today who confirmed that Iran had telegraphed this attack to the United States before it happened. By doing that, President Trump does a few things looking forward. Number one is he sort of takes the fangs out of the Iranian regime. Remember, they also have domestic politics to worry about, hardliners that wouldn't want their regime to just lay down in the face of American strikes on Saturday. And President Trump sort of took the ability for them to kind of fake that away by calling this out and thanking Iran for giving advance notice. The other part is this is an off-ramp for both Iran and for Israel. We spoke to the White House just a little while ago. Officials tell us there that President Trump may not exactly pressure Israel to come to the negotiating table and stop firing missiles at Iran, but what they did say was from the beginning of this conflict, President Trump has been very consistent that it has to end with a negotiated peace between Iran, Israel, and the United States being involved. This sort of sets that up at this point, Blake. And as you mentioned, tomorrow, President Trump heading to NATO. It will be a very interesting backdrop, having everything we've seen in the last 48 hours as the U.S. meets with its NATO allies.
Our Joe Khalil live tonight on the North Lawn. Joe, thank you. So going forward, the president, what's he thinking tonight? What might he do next? Two people who know him very well with me now, the former chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, the former press secretary, Sean Spicer, both NewsNation contributors. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us today. We watched all of this throughout the day, and Mick and Sean, as this was unfolding, and I was on air with Nicole Burley, I was making the point at the time, obviously, first and foremost, your thoughts are with the troops, and you hope and you pray that nothing happens, obviously. And then the question becomes, is Iran doing this to try to save face? Or are they actually doing this to try to cause damage? And President Trump tonight is seemingly suggesting, Mick, that, Brian Empton used the word performative. Was this essentially just face-saving and performative from Iran? And if so, what does the commander-in-chief do next?
Yeah, the answer is yes, but it was performative at a certain level, similar to what the actions that Iran took after we took out Soleimani, the IGRC head, a couple years back. But I think it's a little bit naive to think this might be the only thing that they do. I think what you might be seeing is an admission by Iran that they're not in a position right now to respond sort of traditionally. They're not in a position to attack us with rockets, with military, with their Air Force, etc. I don't think they've really got the ability to close the Straits of Hormuz. That's another conversation. But to think that they're just going to sort of go away might be a little bit naive. I think they're looking at asymmetrical warfare. They probably would be looking at terrorist attacks, those types of things. So, look, it's a great sign. It absolutely is. But to think this is the end of it, I think is a little premature.
So, Sean, did the president get ahead of himself when he posted, "Congratulations, world. It's time for peace"? We all remember the last Republican president before Trump who went into the Middle East and declared mission accomplished, and how that turned out.
Yeah, look, I think the president's not only trying to set the table here to say to the Iranians, as J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and others said on Sunday, we didn't attack Iran. We don't want war with Iran. We want to have war with your nuclear capabilities, and that we're not looking to further strike at you. We were looking to take out your capabilities. We're not looking for regime change. We're looking for an off-ramp where you guys can continue as long as you lay down your nukes. And I think that's what the president got today. So it's not just signaling to the United States, but he's trying to make sure that he signals to Iran and to the region that the U.S. is willing to stop after we take out their capabilities and go forward. I will say I agree with Mick on 2/3 of what he had to say. I think this was performative by Iran. They had the opportunity to try something. They didn't. They gave us a heads up. They needed to show that they were fighting back so they could tell their people they did something, and they largely did it just for show. I agree with Mick that we don't know what's next. It could be asymmetrical. They could look at some kind of cyber warfare type thing. But the one area that I'll disagree with him on, I had the former Secretary of the Navy on my podcast tonight, and I do think that there is a big question about what they can do in the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of oil flows through there. It's not necessarily in their interest to shut it off entirely, but they've got land-based missiles that they could be firing at our naval assets, and this is a very different type of dynamic that could happen there.
And I'm going to talk to Ryan Peterson, who knows shipping better than anyone, coming up here on the show, but some news from the president and his Truth Social handle. Stay with me here because it's lengthy as I read this to Mick Mulvaney and Sean Spicer. The president, quote, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire. And upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war, President Trump here. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America. And God bless the world." That from the president's Truth Social account, Mick, quite literally seconds ago.
That's great news. I'm glad to hear it. I'd be curious to see if it holds. You always worry about ceasefires holding. Again, if you wanted to look there for a deeper sort of more than just the war is over, be curious to know what those last missions are that were referenced. And whether or not that will hold up or not. But listen, unequivocally, that's probably pretty good news. I'm glad to hear it.
Sean?
I'd say this. I'll take it one step further than Mick did. If the president, if this actually does hold, and Mick's right, that's a big if. If this holds, this is a big victory for President Trump. He sought to make it very clear that Iran couldn't have a nuclear weapon. He did not want regime change or to have further destruction. He didn't want any U.S. assets or individuals harmed. So if this happens, it's a big win for President Trump. And I will just say this. The way the Democrats reacted over the weekend, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, Bernie Sanders, was absolutely, utterly disgraceful. And if the president can get this to hold and destroy their nuclear capabilities, they've got a lot of groveling and apologizing to do.
So I heard you both say if, and I understand why you said if, right? There's no guarantees in life. This is the Middle East, after all. What gives you hope that this will hold, Sean?
Well, I think that that show of force. Look, I've been in the military 26 years. What happened Saturday night will go down in history as one of the most flawlessly and effective military operations in the history of the United States. I cannot underscore how coordinated, joint, comprehensive, effective, deceptive that operation was. The world got to see it, not just Iran. And if I saw that and they saw that, they said, let's be smart and walk this back ASAP. The world understood that. You just got a taste of our capabilities and the taste of President Trump's resolve. I think anyone with a brain realized what was to come if they didn't cut a deal.
Mick, what do you think we learned? Go on, and then
there's another angle here to build a little bit on what Sean just said. There's also this dynamic, which is what made Iran sort of influential in the region, able to sort of dictate many policies, get involved with Hezbollah, get involved with the Houthis, with Hamas and so forth, was the backing of its nuclear capabilities, or at least its nascent nuclear capabilities. Everybody was worried about them getting it. They punched above their weight for that reason. Saudi Arabia was worried about that. The Emirates were worried about that. Qatar was worried about that. Everybody's worried about that. With that gone, with Donald Trump taking that off of the table by virtue of what happened on Saturday night, maybe the whole region now gets together and says, look, let's see if we can work this out. So you ask the question, if it holds, why would it hold? I think everybody wants it to hold at this point. Iran sees absolutely no benefit from continuing this aggression. The Saudis want to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, let me leave you with this, because you both know Donald Trump very well, better than most. And given what we have seen in the last 48 hours, Mick and Sean, and given what we just learned from the president, quote, congratulations to everyone, it has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire. He says that, the war will be considered ended. I wonder what you both learned over the last, let's call it 48 hours. Mick, I'll start with you.
That if you listen to Donald Trump enough, he'll tell you what he really believes in. I mean, granted, he can say a bunch of different things about a bunch of different things, but come back to what he said about the nuclear program in Iran for the last 10 years, before he was even president. They can't have a nuclear weapon. He wasn't talking about regime change. He wasn't talking about forever wars and so forth. In fact, he ran against those things when he ran for office. But he was very specific about this. And if you listen to Donald Trump long enough, you can take him at his word on things that he really believes in.
Why did he talk about
regime
regime change,
ending this program.
He did bring it up.
I think he's sort of trolling folks, and I think that's sort of his strategic ambiguity. That he said, well, maybe I am thinking about that. Again, it might come to that at some point in the future. That's not Donald Trump's nature. He doesn't want to get involved in regime change because we don't do it very well in this country.
Sean, same question to you.
Yeah, I'd piggyback on what Mick said. Look, there's a consistency in Donald Trump's thinking, whether it's tariffs, ending Iran's nuclear capability, not wanting death and destruction, like he doesn't want to be in forever wars. And everything that happened this weekend is consistent with that. He wanted to take out their capability. He didn't want to get into a forever war. He didn't want boots on the ground. And he did it. The second most important thing, as I echoed a moment ago, understand the might and the strength of the U.S. military and never, ever question its ability to execute on target.
Sean Spicer, Mick Mulvaney, appreciate you both and staying with me here for the news as the president declares, again, congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, and he goes on to detail the next steps. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks, guys.
You bet, Blake.
Still to come here on The Hill, a live look at Doha. Why did Iran send missiles in that direction? What was it trying to do and say in potentially its final hours of this war? Former Brigadier General joins us live. Plus, missiles taken down, but will gas prices come down too? I was looking at my phone during all that because I was thinking to myself, I wonder what is going on with markets after that announcement. I'm going to show you what happened today and that 37-hour nonstop flight to conduct Operation Midnight Hammer, how the B-2 bombers showcased America as a superpower. We have a lot of breaking news here on The Hill. I'm Blake Burman. Other side of the break, 4 minutes. See you then. It is 6:20 here in Washington, 1:20 in Tel Aviv and across the Middle East and parts tonight. And some news out of the Oval Office as President Trump has said that Israel and Iran have agreed to, as he put it, a complete and total ceasefire, saying on the assumption that everything works out as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries for what he said would be ending the quote-unquote 12-day war. Live look, though, at Doha right now, just hours after Iran launched retaliatory missiles at a U.S. airbase site nearby. The U.S. government reports the base wasn't damaged. And over the weekend, the financial world really kind of watched, wondering what might come next with the market reaction, given all the ongoings in the Middle East. But today, at least at the corner of Wall and Broadway, you look at this, considering that the U.S. bombed Iranian sites, Iran sent missiles back, and this is what you had. Green across the screen, Dow, NASDAQ, S&P 500, all up basically about a point. And then oil prices. I want to show you the story with oil, right? Because when you talk about the Middle East, that, of course, is a big economic story there. Oil prices were rising for the past month, wondering what might come. But look at what happened today. Down basically $6 a barrel, down about 9% with all the news today alone. Average gas prices in America right now, $3.22 per gallon for regular, $4.04, just north of $4 for a gallon of premium. Now, overall, a muted response to Iran's attacks, at least in our financial markets, as I mentioned. It could have less to do with what Iran did and more to do with what it didn't. The country had considered closing the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. The strait is a waterway located between Iran and Oman at its narrowest point. It's just 21 miles wide, but that little stretch of water carries big implications for the global economy, including the oil markets that we were just talking about. 20 million barrels of oil pass through the strait every day. That's about 20% of the world's oil supply, and you can see where it sits so closely in relation to all of the events that we saw today. I tell you, he's the one person I want to talk to when it comes to shipping, because he knows it better than anyone else. Ryan Peterson is the CEO of Flexport, joins us live once again here on The Hill. Ryan, thanks for being back with us. And in the middle of this breaking news, it seems as if we take the president at face value there, which we do, there could be a ceasefire here in the upcoming hours. There was a lot of talk about the Strait of Hormuz. I think you heard Sean Spicer even talk about it. What's your view at this hour and what all this means for commerce?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back on. I mean, it's great news that there's a ceasefire, obviously, for way beyond commerce, just for peace in the world. But yeah, the Strait of Hormuz is the critical juncture in the global supply chain for oil. You just put the stats up there, but it's hard to understate how important that is. But it's also never been closed, really. It kind of stays open through all the various things that have happened in the Middle East. And on some level, I think you saw it in Wall Street. Maybe there was some leak of the ceasefire getting negotiated or something. You never know. But also, Wall Street sort of discounts the idea that Iran would ever shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They know that their main ally in the world is China, and China depends on that oil that comes through there, and they themselves need to ship the oil through to fund their government, fund the war, whatever else they want to do. So it's difficult to take them too seriously if they say they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ryan, because even given the response today, which, I mean, you've got missiles heading in the direction, but it seemed like some to most of this was at least the United States had a heads up. And when you think about that, I think to myself, no way they would ever go the next step, which, you know, would be quote unquote economic suicide for that nation. What are you watching for then going forward here, given all of the attention that this was given over the last 48 hours?
I mean, obviously, it's breaking news about the ceasefire, so I'm still digesting that and processing it. But I mean, the main thing for next day or two is, does that take hold? Does it actually work out? And the Strait of Hormuz is also just a critical junction, not only for fuel and oil, but it's very big for ocean container shipping too. Jebel Ali is the port in Dubai, is the 10th largest container port in the world, major hub for transshipment. So a lot of containers come in and out of there. And looking at the insurance rates of do people start to divert traffic away from that port as it gets too expensive? And I guess the longer term fallout or potential, let's say, is what's going on with the Houthis in the Red Sea. Everybody's called the Houthis a proxy of Iran, who have shut down shipping through the Red Sea. So a true ceasefire working towards better days, sunnier days in the Middle East would allow the reopening of the Red Sea. Container ships have not been going through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal since December of 2023. So
bigger implications here, essentially?
That'd be great. I mean, that would be a silver lining in all of this, is if a deal could get done, would allow the container ships to return through the Suez, which, last week was not even a possibility. This morning you woke up, weren't talking about that. So that'd be the kind of upside scenario that of a deal here that went beyond ceasefire into some sort of normalized relations. But it's way too early to talk about that.
He is Ryan Peterson, CEO of Flexport, one of the leaders in logistics globally, with us once again here on the Hill. I'm a little squeezed on time because of that breaking news. Wish we had more, but I know we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Great. And thank you. Thanks you so much.
Of course. Catch you next time, Ryan. Ryan Peterson from Flexport. All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. Live pictures out of Tel Aviv. Our man on the ground there is Robert Sherman. News out of the Oval involving the president. Word of a ceasefire. We take you live to the Middle East when the Hill returns. We continue to follow breaking news out of the Middle East here on the Hill on NewsNation. It is 6:30 here in Washington. I'm Blake Burman. Thanks for staying with us tonight. President Trump, just about 25 minutes ago, posting to his Truth Social account, in part, quote, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire." The president says that this should end what he is calling the quote-unquote 12-day war. Out to the Middle East now. Tel Aviv, once again, our Robert Sherman there with the latest. Robert, as I was going through the president's statement there, he also talks about how Israel and Iran essentially can continue on for the next handful of hours or so. And I'm hearing that you're hearing that Israel is still conducting strikes, right?
Yeah, that is the case here, Blake, is that we do know that from the Israelis, that strikes are on the agenda for this evening, taking place as we speak. In terms of exactly where they are, the Israelis are not outwardly saying that, although they did give evacuation orders in Tehran. And the context that I would fill in there, Blake, is that even in the wake of the United States knocking out those nuclear sites, there has still been a ballistic missile threat to Israel over the last few days, even this morning. Well, now yesterday morning, as we're in the early morning hours here, we had to run to bomb shelters twice because of ballistic missiles being fired by Iran. There's even a major hospital here in central Israel that is operating underground because of that threat. So we know that that is a big element of some of the targets that need to be taken off the board first before the ceasefire here. If you talk about the logistics of all of this for a moment, though, I want to read this part of it here from the president's statement. Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. So the staggering of all of this here, first Iran, then Israel, and then that 24-hour mark, you'd be talking about Wednesday morning on the ground here, in which there would be a so-called agreement to ending the 12-day war. Now, I want to emphasize, Blake, is that we have been in touch with the Prime Minister's office. Yeah. There is no formal acknowledgement of this yet coming from Jerusalem. There is no formal acknowledgement of this coming from Tehran. This is purely coming from the White House at this juncture.
Did this surprise you?
This is where we stand.
Did this surprise you, Robert? I mean, you've been reporting in the Middle East on and off for the last 2 years now.
Yeah, I mean, it most certainly surprised us that we would be seeing something, that we would be seeing a statement like this of the kind, particularly since Israel said that there are more targets that they needed to knock off the board. But perhaps there's a belief that that can be done in the next few hours, assuming that all of this is true in the long run here, Blake.
Our Robert Sherman live once again in Tel Aviv tonight. Robert, thank you. All right, want to bring in retired Brigadier General John Teichert with us once again. A busy man here on News Nation and with us here on the Hill last several days or so. Always nice to see you, sir. Thank you.
Great to be here, Blake.
So let's take the president's post at face value. The president basically announcing this quote-unquote complete and total ceasefire. Can we go to Fordo? That was the main nuclear site in Iran. And I want to start with the before and after images, okay? Because if Iran indeed and Israel have agreed to this, those are them, General. You can see the before and after. It's actually up here on the screen now. And it gets to the question of how badly damaged is Iran that they would actually agree to this?
Blake, I think based on the president making this decision and this announcement, that he is confident that the strikes from Saturday night were absolutely effective. And that means that at Natanz and Fordo, that those deeply buried centrifuges are eliminated.
Okay.
And at Esfahan, any enriched uranium has also been eliminated. And so that plays into both our desire to end the war and see a ceasefire on terms that are beneficial to us and Iran as well.
So that was one of the questions, right? Which is when will we know how damaged these actually are or are not? And what you're saying essentially is this tends to give, I don't want to use the word confirmation, but maybe reality, that the before and after images kind of tell the story.
It does. There was one red line from the President of the United States, and that is Iran will not have weaponized nuclear capability, which means that the intel that he sees from these strikes from Saturday night give him confidence that we achieve that objective.
It struck me that Robert, and Robert's been on the ground there for the better part of close to 2 years now, a year and a half at least in the Middle East, that he mentioned, General, that Israel still has a ballistic missile threat from Iran, even as of this moment. What is that threat? Even though if there is this ceasefire, and even if it were to hold, what is the continuing, and this is sort of the map of the capabilities. We don't know exactly all of their capabilities at this point. Maybe even Iran doesn't know, I don't know. But what is the sort of ballistic missile threat right now as it relates to Israel firing upon Iran or to any of our troops in the region?
I think the expectation is that Iran started with about 2,500 ballistic missiles. They fired 500 at Israel. Potentially 1,000 or so have been eliminated by Israeli Air Force strikes, which means they have 25, 30% of their original fleet remaining. That is substantial. That's a threat to these areas in this target region, but it does demonstrate a bit of decimation of their offensive capability that's going to take a long time to build back.
We started the afternoon, at least, with the story of Iran firing at a U.S. military base in Doha, Qatar. And I sort of wanted you to walk through for us. This is the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, 10,000 troops or so, give or take, at the Al Udeid Air Base there. President Trump was there just last month. When he made his Middle East stop, that's where the president went. From Iran's perspective, if this was their last, call it sort of off-ramp, save face, to try to speak internally, why did they choose this location?
This location would have been extremely well defended, which means those missiles, 14 or so that Iran fired, would likely not get through.
So they wanted no business, basically, is what you're saying.
No, because they knew if they did this and one did get through and Americans were killed, then it would not end the conflict. It would likely accelerate or escalate the conflict. They did not want that. They wanted the save face, the off-ramp, and what they did against a heavily defended target that they likely gave intelligence ahead of time to, so that we could prepare, was their best way to do so.
Let me leave you with this complete and total ceasefire. Again, take it at face value coming from the president. As Robert said, haven't heard from either the Israelis or the Iranians. Did that catch you off guard?
It did. I think that this was a last gasp by Iran, but I think the fact that it could escalate so quickly, like it happened on Saturday, that Iran did this today, and then this was the final gasp, this was the off-ramp, I think all of that happened a lot faster than anyone expected.
Retired Brigadier General John Teichert with us once again. Thank you, sir. It's always great to get your perspective.
Thanks, Blake.
Appreciate it. All right. Other side of the break as we continue to follow the news. It begs the question, is this peace through strength? You've heard that saying time and time and time again. Is that what we actually just witnessed? When the Hill returns. Okay, it is a consequential day and a consequential evening in the Middle East as we keep our eyes on Tel Aviv, where it is 1:43 in the morning. If you are just joining us here, 6:43 on the East Coast, President Trump taking to Truth Social and posting, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire." We haven't gotten confirmation yet from the Israelis, as our Robert Sherman, who's on the ground in Tel Aviv, tells us, or the other side, Iran. But the commander-in-chief, President Trump, posting that to Truth Social at 6:02 p.m. here on the East Coast. So we've had about 40 minutes to digest this and try to figure out what happens from here. Full panel with me. T.W. Origi, former communications aide to Senator Lindsey Graham. She is the national political reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. Yemisi Egbawali is a former White House press office chief of staff, Democratic strategist as well. And back with us, Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, Trump White House chief of staff. Mick, hello. Hello to you all. I stress here, one, you got to take this at face value, right? Because he is the president of the United States. He has posted this. So let's go word by word here. Congratulations to everyone. Complete and total ceasefire here, TW. What do you expect to come next?
I expect negotiations to be renewed. Look,
what do you mean by that?
Iran has no choice but to come back to the table. They've been so decimated, their air defenses, their proxies, they don't really have a greater means to fight back. The Straits of Hormuz would take the very few friends they have and turn them into enemies quite quickly. They know that they're out of options. And Donald Trump did a great service to the world by helping Israel neutralize, at least in the short to medium term, their ability to continue enriching uranium. What will be interesting now is the ball is in Israel's court. Benjamin Netanyahu said this morning, hinting at that they have intelligence about where their current uranium stockpiles are. That will be interesting to see how they go forward with that. But right now, Donald Trump, with a big stick, has taken out their biggest threat to the world, and now it's back to the negotiating table.
Well, I think until somebody somewhere confirms anything, it's just a social media post and just more noise. He's done a lot of his diplomatic efforts through social media, and there's been a lot of disconnecting messages. We saw the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, on different news outlets throughout the day, and there was different messaging, and he was in real time negating some of the things they were saying. And so I think we really just are in a holding pattern until somebody on one side or the other actually confirms this.
Mick, I should note that Israel is widening evacuation orders for Tehran. Those orders went out earlier, and now the zone, the area there, is getting bigger, I am told. That fits with basically what the president putting in his post, saying both sides have 6 to 12 hours now to basically sort of get their last moves in, for lack of a better term, before this ceasefire. As you've had now 30 minutes to sort of digest this, where are you with all this as we keep our eyes on the Middle East?
Yeah, I'm sort of taking a wait and see. I'll take the president's statement at face value. I doubt seriously he made that up out of whole cloth. But, you know, when you first read it to me when I was on earlier with Sean Spicer, and then I had a chance to look at it during the break, this concept about ongoing missions or final missions, that's a giant gray area.
So let me hit the pause button there. Yeah, so let me just read it to our audience. He says, in approximately 6 hours from, talking about the ceasefire, in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final mission. So basically, that's what you're getting at there, Mick. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, if the Israeli final mission is to get rid of the Ayatollah, how do you think the Iranians are going to feel about a ceasefire? I don't know why that is there, and that may be why you don't have confirmation yet from either the Iranians or the Israelis. I think TW mentioned something that I thought is noteworthy, which is that this may be one way to get to that uranium, that enriched uranium that we might not have been able to find, a way to clean up and actually finish this job of removing the nuclear threat that Iran poses to the rest of the world. If we really don't know where it is, maybe that is the negotiating chip that the Iranians have. They're willing to give that up in exchange for peace. That would be fascinating to watch as well.
Julia?
You know, I thought it was interesting listening and watching the president all day today because he was relatively, I say relatively quiet on social media. He was criticizing the coverage that the strikes had got. But, you know, I thought it was interesting. At one point, he even went as far to say to thank Iran for giving the U.S. a heads up. And you to see this bit of a conciliatory tone from the president. So I think we maybe had some sort of a foreshadowing that something like this, if this is in fact a ceasefire, was to come. But at the same time, I think the president over here is under extreme political pressure under this. You know, there's polling that shows that roughly 36% of Americans are strongly in favor or fully in favor of the Iranian strikes. The president was also tweeting today or posting on his social media platform today about oil prices. And I think that's something that's really concerning him right now. So I think this messaging ties into that.
Where is that, Mary Kate? Can someone email it to me? The Ayatollah has just put out a statement saying those who know the Iranian people and their history knows that the Iranian nation isn't a nation that surrenders. So there you go. Sorry, it was up on the screen. I was waiting for excellent Mary Kate to give it to me. It was right in front of my face. So there you go. And I guess this, look, it sort of brings into question here how all of this starts to unwind, if it does.
Mm-hmm. I mean, very easy to start a war. If anything, the last 2 decades has taught us something. It's incredibly hard to end one.
Jim Mattis, no war is over until the enemy says it's over.
Yeah, and to your point, we are war weary. I mean, a lot of us who grew up 9/11, we saw weapons of mass destruction. That turned out to be a lie. I mean, to look at the framework of where we were in the early 2000s and the full unthroated bipartisan support, and now there is hesitation, there are protests, and there's not a lot of strong polling support for this.
What do you make of that statement there?
The Ayatollah is under a ton of pressure internally. You said Donald Trump's under some pressure, not even remotely close to the pressure that the Ayatollah is under. Obviously, severely weakened state, just had his nuclear program neutralized for the near term. Obviously, he doesn't want to say he surrenders. Donald Trump tweeted about regime change this morning. The Israelis still haven't taken that off the table. He knows one bad move could lead to the end of his regime, but he still wants to save face with his people. So that makes perfect sense. And by the way, doing a ceasefire or opening up negotiations isn't surrender.
So
just to piggyback off of that, I think Iran finds itself in a very different position today as, you know, compared to 10 years ago. I mean, we talk so much today about Russia and China and how Iran has been in touch with them, but it's been very quiet on the Hezbollah front, on the Houthis front. Syria looks a hell of a lot different today than it has because there's no Bashar al-Assad helping out Iran. So it's completely different, a different situation it finds itself in.
Is this peace through strength, Mick?
Well, it's certainly strength. I don't know if it's peace yet. That statement sounds like it. If you really wanted that statement, if you wanted to sort of look at it as a confirmation of a peace deal, I suppose you probably could. But goodness gracious, it doesn't sound like the most energetic confirmation of a peace deal. It sounds like he might be holding out to see what happens over the course of the next several hours. If it ends up with peace, yes, this is what peace through strength looks like. That's exactly what it looks like. You know, factor that into the considerations of the spending bills that we're going to be having in Washington over the course of the next couple of weeks. But I don't know if it's peace yet, because I look at that statement and think there's 5 or 6 different ways out of what Donald Trump laid down as a framework.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, some people might see a cessation of hostilities as surrender. Why did, if he was going to say, if he was confirming the Trump statement, why didn't he say, I look forward to the ceasefire? He didn't say any of that. He says, we don't surrender. As between confirmation and non-confirmation, that sounds awful bellicose for somebody who just agreed to a peace deal.
Got to run real quickly. Peace through strength?
Provocation without a plan. And I hope that he starts to connect with Congress. Both Democrats and Republicans were blindsided by this.
Peace through strength or no?
I think I agree with much of what Mick just said. Whether it's the Soleimani attack, ISIS, the nuclear strike, these are actions that create deterrence over time. People know that. That's why Iran will be at the peace table soon enough, I predict.
We'll have to see what happens at the end of this.
As they say, we'll see what happens. We hear that phrase out of the White House. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Mick, remotely, thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate it, bud. Talk soon. All right, still to come here on the Hill and really on NewsNation for the upcoming many hours here. We monitor the ongoings there in the Middle East. Elizabeth Vargas is up in 7 minutes' time. We return here on the Hill, other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, so as I told you earlier in the show, it is absolutely worth noting one of the many results in the last 48 hours or so. The U.S. bombed Iran's nuclear sites. Iran fired back today across the Middle East. And the stock market, would you believe it, in the green. Oil prices dropping as well. Just one sign of strength of the United States. But you can go well beyond your wallet, because this weekend our warfighters took to the skies. And how they did it, never seen before. Pilots flying the one-in-a-kind B-2 bombers from Missouri to Iran and back, equipped with mini refrigerators, a microwave, and a toilet, and a whole lot of training, focus, and bravery for their 37-hour venture. Now, you might support the decision to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. You might oppose it. Maybe you have no opinion and are just anxious about what all of this means. Wherever you fall on that spectrum, you can know this. The United States, the only nation with that technology right there, and when it came time to execute the mission, the military says it was flawless. Now, we don't know what's next in the Middle East, Iran, Israel, and beyond, but we will be here to cover it in the upcoming days and weeks here on the Hill. This show started with the lead being Iran sends missiles towards a U.S. base in the Middle East, unsuccessfully. And then just minutes in, we got the post from the commander-in-chief himself, the president writing, "Congratulations to everyone. There is a complete and total ceasefire." It is worth noting at this moment that Israel has not yet confirmed that. Iran has not yet confirmed that. Israel, by the way, has also widened evacuation orders for Tehran. As I mentioned, we do not know what will come next, but it seems for sure that there is movement all across the Middle East. And we thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill as we try to navigate all of it. Our coverage continues here on News Nation as Elizabeth Vargas reports. Starts in a few seconds. I'm Blake Burman. Thank you for watching.
We begin with breaking developments out of the Middle East, where it has been a day of missiles.